Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. I'm Francis Seeley from Enfield Climate Action Forum, and recently we did a project which involved two large community panels around climate change and public health. And we've got two people here today who were involved in that, and they're Tracey Williams and Ayfer Orhan. And we're going to talk to both of them about the panels and the project and see what they thought about it and how they thought it went. So welcome, both of you. Maybe I can start, first of all, maybe beginning with you, Tracey, could you tell us a bit about yourself and your involvement in the Health Climate Action Project?
Hello, hi, good morning, both of you. I hope you're both well. So a little bit about myself. Okay, so my background ultimately is within HR, retail, senior management, that type of thing, always learning and development, and working with small business. So I've been in that field sort of 14 years. And then from there, I went on to working with small business owners and writing business plans and doing a lot of consultancy work. So my work and involvement with yourselves, with EnCaf, really came from a contact of mine, Rudy, who introduced Francis and I, and that's where the sort of relationship sort of flourished from there. So I got involved by doing some facilitation for both of the events that took place for the project.
Okay, and Ayfer, I know you're a friend of Rudy as well, but that's not how we made contact. How did you get involved in the project?
I've got involved in the project simply because I'm very much involved with the activities of environmentalist groups in Enfield and in particular with EnCaf. And also it's a matter that's close to my heart in mini health climate action. I mean, you know, who could say no to that when you get invited by someone as well known as like Francis to come on board and help note take and help Tracey in her phenomenal facilitation that she did on the day. And then, of course, there was a huge opportunity to get feedback and have a long conversation with all the range of stakeholders and voluntary sector organisation who's really keen to highlight, the work that they're doing around climate action and climate emergency. So it was such a wonderful invitation, and thank you, Francis. And of course, I too know Rudy Page. We were known as the Three Musketeers way back in the early 90s when we were both involved in a number of projects run by I was the lead, one of the lead coordinators of those projects by the North London Tech Training and Enterprise Council. Rudy's not only well known to me, but he's a good friend, and actually he's a fantastic individual with so much wonderful projects and ideas, and has been working in North London and wider fields for many years. So very well liked and experienced gentleman that I'm honoured to have known over the years.
Okay, I mean, both of you keep your audio on because then we'll get the pause. Okay, so I mean, you told us a bit about yourself. That's great, and you were both involved in the community hubs, as we already said. Let me ask you first of all, Tracey, what was your impression about those hubs?
Those hubs, they were well attended, and I also thought that the people really cared. They really cared about their environment, their locality, and they really wanted to make a difference. I noticed how much, I suppose, heart and passion that they had towards the challenges faced around climate change. And everyone is kind of doing their bit in the different respective cells to make it happen and to pull together to make it happen. So I think that having the hubs was something that was much needed to enable them to have a voice, first of all, but to also identify things that maybe at first blush we wouldn't have noticed, or the councils wouldn't have noticed. So it was good to get some grassroots feedback firsthand, and also to let them know the things that are happening and going on in the locality that they didn't know about. So I thought it was really useful, really productive, and really vibrant. So it was amazing to be part of.
Again, Ayfer, with you, I mean, how do you think it went? Did anything happen that surprised you in any way?
as mentioned before, because I was the minute taker, it's you're kind of focusing on recording or taking down individuals' comments and the various presentations that was delivered. And actually, when I went back on my notes and started to type them up in best or best draft, then I came across a number of comments that were made by various organisations, stakeholders and individuals who turned up. And Tracey's absolutely right. It was well attended. And what was so wonderful about these hubs was that they were very interactive, and there was a lot of exchange of ideas and thoughts from, the various people who attended. And it was fantastic. I came away thinking how well it was delivered, how well it was organised, and how well it was facilitated, and how much important it is that the Health Climate Action Forum continues these sort of dialogues in a wider spectrum across the borough and hopefully North London. But one of the things that I came away from that was that there was a lot of concern about air pollution, flooding, and the loss of flora and fauna. And so people were really, really concerned about the impact climate emergency has currently, because it's happening now and will have in the future, and not only for themselves but of their families. And that has resonated with me and has spurred me on to do more.
And that's interesting you said that. But Tracey, what we were trying to do in the project, one of the things we're trying to do is to reach out to groups in Eastern Enfield that are seldom sort of reached, and not because they're hard to reach, but because we don't sometimes use the right form of communication. Do you think we did that okay in this project?
I think that it was represented well. What stood out to me just before I mentioned that was the young people's involvement. Yeah. And even though there weren't a huge amount of young people present, there was enough, and they were vocal enough to have a voice that almost felt like it represented a whole host of young people. So I thought that was really important for them to be heard and for them to have so much to say. I think that with more time, then there could have been an even wider representation. I think with the time that we had and for what was done, I think it was amazing. And I think that if we had an opportunity to maybe spend a little bit on advertising, maybe to broaden it out a little bit more, then there would have been more people. But I think that for these first two meetings that took place, I think that we got a really, really good range and depth of information. So I think it was done really well based on what has taken place.
So, and Ayfer, it wasn't just a mix of sort of ethnic communities, was it? There was, as Tracey said, an intergenerational mix as well. And that is pretty important when you do something like this.
Yeah, I agree. I was really inspired by the young people who attended. They had some fantastic ideas, really positive ideas. And it wasn't, there was concern about the climate, of course, the environment and the air pollution in particular, because it was, the hubs were organised in Edmonton, across Edmonton. One was at 4th Street, the other one was at the Forest Hill Community Health Centre. So there's more concerns in an area that has high concerns about air quality and air pollution, and an area for where the incinerator is, for example. And there's been a lot of publicity about the growth of that and the impact it will have on, continues to have on air quality. And so, and they had some, although they had some, we must do something about it comments, there was a lot of positivity about what can be done about it and how it can be done. And one of the things that came out, particularly from the young people and the older generation, so one extreme and the other, is the older generation wanted to leave a better planet for the younger generation, and the younger generation about to inherit and want a better planet to inherit. Well, they were saying that actually these hubs need to continue, and the debates needs to be expanded to a greater number of people, as Tracey mentioned. But what was so interesting was a lot of people who wanted to target the business community as well, because they felt that they had a really important role to play, and young people were the ones that came up with those suggestions. So fantastic group of people.
I mean, Tracey, Ayfer mentioned that, we dealt with things like air pollution and so on. And, that was when we approached it. We thought that if we just talked about climate change and public health, with people who are facing, a cost of living crisis and all that, that's too abstract. They wouldn't count. So we sort of organized it around issues like air pollution, lack of green spaces, healthy planet for healthy eating, active travel, etc. Do you think that was a good way of doing it? Was that a better way to sort of grab people's attention?
I think that there was a really good cross-section of subjects that were touched on. The food and the cost of living crisis, that was a huge topic. I remember that generated so much conversation, so many different, suggestions and hints and tips on how, things can be done to kind of help. But just understanding the depth of the problem out there locally was really, really surprising. But I think that the way that it was touched, and also just ensuring that we gave them the room to ask questions at the end. So the talks were a good amount of time. So there were like 10, 15 minutes of talks being delivered by the presenters, and then giving them the opportunity to then talk about the actual issue at hand, and then leaving them time to kind of branch out into anything else. I think that was a really good structure. So yes, that was done really well. And the whole cross-section across air pollution, the green space, the cost of living, being able to kind of explore all of those, because it kept everybody there, I think. I didn't really see anybody leave from those that were there at the beginning, unless there was something pressing that they had to go away and do. People kind of stayed from beginning to end, which kind of shows you that there wasn't really a lull, that people found anything disinteresting or anything like that. I think the range of topics really, really kind of captivated the audience.
And Ayfer, you were involved in other things like, getting the survey signed. We didn't just do the projects, we built up to it, didn't we? We had surveys, we had video stories, we had focus groups, we had knowledge-based webinars. I mean, do you think it was really important to, have these activities to get people's engagement to make the panel successful?
Oh, absolutely, because I believe it formed the topics that the hub were able to explore, because what was important was particularly the climate change affects your health. The questionnaire that was carried out, it's and following those surveys that was conducted by EnCaf, it was quite clear that a lot of people are really concerned about the key things, air pollution, food poverty, fuel poverty, badly insulated homes. And these were the topics that were, and all that was health and heat stress, one side cold stress, the other side heat stress, and all that was discussed in the hub. So without these sort of preliminary additional work having carried out by EnCaf, I don't believe that the events would have been so well attended, and B, quite the topics crucial to people's psyche and relevance to their lives. And so and you're right, Francis, I mean, the sort of areas that were explored were all part of the pre-work that was carried out. And actually what happened, the hubs enabled a more in-depth analysis and scrutiny of these subject areas, and getting first-hand verbal and participative response from people whose lives are being impacted by various things that were highlighted earlier in our research and in the polls.
Yeah, you said all that was important. One of the things that worried me when we did it is because we had presentations by people who were doing things, it might inhibit discussion. but I was surprised, Tracey, about how much discussion it generated. Did you get that impression?
Yes, but I think I really enjoyed being able to kind of pull questions and answers out of people and helping to, you know, answer the right questions and identify people with support actually from the rest of you, where, you know, someone else wanted to have something to say, you know, that was highlighted. But I think that it was really important to be able to read the audience and be able to kind of help them to feel open and safe to ask questions or to pose answers. And I think that because the group was the size that it was, it felt just very comfortable and a safe environment to do that. So I don't think there was anybody that wanted to say something that didn't say something. I think that everyone had an equal opportunity to you know, to contribute in the way that they wanted to. Yeah. So no, I thought it was good.
I mean, several of you have said, I mean, both of you have said, in fact, that, you know, that the hubs shouldn't stop there, they should go on. One of the interesting things was the second hub was at a health authority premises, you know, in Forest Road. I mean, they now want to have an ongoing relationship with us, and that's really good. So, you know, how important was it that, I mean, it happened fortuitously, it wasn't so much by design, but how important was it that we did have one of those hubs at a health authority's premises? Because that gave a special focus to it, didn't it? And it involved the statutory authorities as well as the community. I mean, do you think that worked well, Ayfer?
I think it did. I mean, you know, the subject area, I mean, is health climate action, isn't it, really? I mean, that's the forum that organise these things and through EnCaf. But so health is really important and it's crucial, and it's important, I felt, that it should have been at a health centre with the health manager, the managers of the centre and all the various you know, staff participating in the discussions, because then they were able to tell us about how to keep healthy, how to keep warm in winter, how to keep cool in the summer. In fact, produced a number of stats about the number of fatalities when it's too hot or too cold, and the difficulties people are finding not only to heat their homes but to eat healthily as well. So healthy eating habits, looking at alternative ways of how to cook. And actually there was a lot of organizations there who were telling us about community kitchens and, you know, and the sort of pulses that one can have as opposed to buying ready foods. And so it is all health focused, and you know, and it's about mental health, it's about health and well-being, it's about making sure that the air we breathe is healthy for us, and it's about exercise. There was a lot of discussions about, you know, e-bikes and e-mopeds and e-mobility, and so it was so actually absolutely bang on, Francis, that it was imperative actually that one of the hubs should be at a health centre. And I'm so glad that they want more involvement and to do more work, because quite clearly this can explode into all sorts of other areas, and it's important relationship, partnership between the health and EnCaf.
Well, I mean, that's good to hear. But the other partner we had there, or one of the other contributors, Tracey, was the co-op. I mean, I didn't know that, you know, at the beginning that they would get involved, but they found out about this and they were really keen to be involved. You know, do you think it was valuable having a business there and having the co-op? They brought their food bags, they brought bananas and goodness knows what, but you know, they came, and Jerry from the co-op and Nadine in the second hub, who's one of their young pioneers, really contributed it. Do you think that helped a lot, Tracey?
I think that helps massively, because it just shows that, you know, the larger organizations are behind this, and I think the right people were there as well, because they genuinely had a passion and care for what they were doing and how the co-op contributed, and were able to share, you know, a lot about how much the co-op want to get involved in the local community. I think that having the session within the health centre as well, it gave them an opportunity to kind of show off the things that they're doing. So as Ayfer said, it's really about showing about the statistics and the health benefits and things that they're doing within the centres. So I think it was very important for them to be there and to have a lot of representation from the centre manager, the psychotherapist and the other physiotherapists.
Yes, yeah.
It was brilliant to have all of them there present. And I think it's really important to continue the conversation. So it is absolutely amazing that they want to continue to engage, because with a lot of these things, sometimes people lose heart because nothing then seems to happen with the information that they spent that time, and the time from the day, providing. So it's important to be able to feed back what's happened with it, or what next steps have been carried forward, or what is work in progress. So I think that having a follow-up is very, very important.
Yeah, I mean, and we plan to do that. And the co-op wants to do that. We're talking to the health authority. We are to try and have a continuous hub of some kind there, talking to an organisation in West Enfield to do the same. So I think, we will carry it on. It will take a lot of work, but we can. Ayfer, I mean, if there's any improvements we could have made to what we did, what do you think they might be?
Oh, that's a good question. I've not thought about in terms of improvements and such, but just to go back to what Tracey said at the beginning, what was about expanding it to wider communities, and actually maybe looking at I think we did great promotional publicity around this, but and there's always a danger if you do too much publicity and it gets oversubscribed. Actually, you won't have the sort of you won't have the sort of impact that you could have, because, or the right sort of dialogue, because in the smaller setting, people are more freer and relaxed about contributing. In a bigger setting, it almost becomes like a conference or a congress kind of environment. So you have to kind of balance it out. But I think it's important to reach a wider community, and I believe part of those communities aren't just ethnic communities, but it's actually the business community. And it's also maybe, I think we had a representative from the local mosque as well, but to reach other religious organisations. And we had Enfield Racial Equality Council, Bevan Beaton was there, the chair, and as you said, Francis, co-op, but other businesses as well, and other organisations that maybe Chamber of Commerce, because then they can work direct with their own businesses about highlighting some of the issues coming up from that. So maybe it's that, a wider project, but also a continuation of it, because not from me, but because of the notes I took, everyone wanted this thing to continue, and they wanted it to grow bigger, and they wanted the champions to be developed. And in fact, a lot of people have put their names forward for that. One of the things that came up from us very quickly, it was really to do with, for me, it was to do with a question that was one of the attendees asked, am I doing right? I recall her, I mean, these aren't her exact words, but I recall her saying something like, I'm recycling, I'm separating my green bins from my, food bins, and from my everyday rubbish and she was saying, am I doing enough? I feel as if I should be doing more, but am I doing enough? And actually, that's a question that we all ask of ourselves. Are we doing enough? And maybe part of the topics for the future could be to cover these things on a personal level, not on a big global level, but on a personal level, what we can do as individuals, and are we doing enough?
I think those are things we can follow up on. But of course, when you do a project, I mean, for me, I can always think of things we could have done better. I mean, for example, I think if we had more time, as Tracey said, we could have gone and visited more people, because, people want you to visit them. They won't necessarily come to the panel. And other things, we spent quite a lot of money on distributing leaflets because we paid someone to distribute it. And I'm not sure if that was as great a value for money as some of the other things we could have done. I like the co-ops model, where they pay young pioneers for just 4 hours a week. And in that time, they act as enablers and catalysts. And I think that's a good model we could develop in the future. But are there any improvements, Tracey, that you would have made?
I think definitely, when we spoke about this as well before, the business community, because it will be good to kind of get some steer from them around the challenges that they face, but also what they're doing within the local community on the subject. I think that other improvements or anything that we could have done better. I think I spoke about the education piece as well, and maybe involving young people from a school type of age, be it secondary school, even primary school children, because they're very articulate. These children are different nowadays. The things that they come out with, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like they've been born already. So it'll be really good to get their take, because they're brutally honest.
Yes.
You know, they say what they see, and they emotionalize, or they state how they feel, and they will say it as blunt and as, you know, cutthroat as as they see fit, but it's how things are perceived in their eyes. So it'll be interesting to kind of get some sort of educational perspective, or some sort of children's perspective. Maybe if you know, there was a project done in a school, even if it was a test bed in some way, to see what they come up with. I think that the listening group model and that focus group and the size was the right way to go, because it helps to kind of engage in that dialogue and kind of keeps it contained. But I think that all of the other things that have happened to take place, it all feeds into that. So yeah, so I think that was brilliant. But yeah, definitely there's, and definitely education.
Yeah, I mean, we did do a mini hub as well at Chicken Shed with young people, and we also had an education project going on, which was separate from this, but also integrated in terms of concept anyhow, where we worked with primary school kids, and they made videos, or they made drawings, or they made illustrations in a competition. And the presentation for the prizes of that is going to be on November, I think, the 24th. So we've actually involved schools. Let me ask you finally, because we've sort of got an end, you know, we're close to the end of this now. I mean, first, Ayfer, I mean, what do you think would be the legacy of this project in terms of activities and plans going forward?
Learning, lots of learning, and a better understanding about, you know, the things that matter to people. I mean, we kind of knew, because, you know, it matters to us as well, but to hear it from other people, to voice it and articulate it, and raise concerns, it was really important. So I think the legacy is that we are wiser, I think, beyond these two hubs and beyond the surveys and consultation, the wider consultation that's been carried out by EnCaf. And going forward, I think our programs would, not that they weren't, because actually they were, and the huge amount of work that's been done on the incinerator, for example, and our colleagues involved with that have been phenomenal, and it shouldn't be underestimated, the huge amount of research that's gone into that. But you know, so that you could better target, I think, some of the work in the future, so that it meet the objectives of local residents, and then hopefully they'll get more and more involved. Can I just say, actually, I mean, I agree with Tracey about sort of like the various groups and organisations, and we have already mentioned the business community, but we mustn't forget the huge amount of talent that's out there that wants to get involved in these sort of programmes, and they are already doing a lot of work, and that's to, you know, People's Theatre locally, based in Edmonton, who've done a lot of performance across the borough on the incinerator and about environmental issues, and about food poverty. And also Colin's group of young people who were there, who performed, were fantastic. So a lot of drama, I think, another medium of getting the message out to a wider group, another form of a message delivery vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, when we were at Chicken Shed, a lot of the young people said, because we had Enfield People's Theatre there, having theatre helps discussion, and they thought that was really valuable. Tracey, what do you think the legacy of the project might be?
I think the legacy will be about change, affecting change, and something about pride, because that was a big thing that kind of came through, is that there was a lot of pride in the residents of Enfield. That I think there's also some work to do with the two different parts of the borough as well, to kind of bring them together.
Yeah.
And to also kind of share the things that maybe they're doing on the other side that could be implemented, you know, on the east side of the borough. I think that there's almost a class divide, as I saw it. It feels like there's some type of class divide that could cause a little bit of resentment in some ways, because it's almost like, you know, where there's the side of the borough that is not cared for as much. Just even talking about the sign, and the sign that's been fallen down for 5 years, and no one's kind of addressed it. Like, I think that would be a really, really quick win for the council to address that, just to show that they care and that they are invested in the borough and that side of the borough as a starter, you know, because it's something that was mentioned like time and time again. So I would love for by the next meeting, some of those same people that were there that were mentioning that, we can actually say, actually, it's been done. And I think having more representation from the council itself, from the areas. We had that one lady that was on the 5th of October from the council. Her presence there talking about the cycle and the bicycles, that was really valuable. I don't feel personally that she was ambushed in any sort of way. And I think she would have had to manage her expectations in some ways, knowing that, she represents a council, so she's going to get a lot of questions. But I think that they should be more open to being present at these conversations, so they can hear firsthand what the issues are, so that they can take it away and try and tackle them directly themselves, and then come back and say, what's been done. So I think that was really, really valuable. But definitely a legacy of pride and a legacy of change.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks both of you. And I mean, that point about the east and the west of the borough, I think is important, because, the east are where the most disadvantaged communities live, and those are the people who are going to be most adversely affected. And in the west, you've got people who probably have a heavier carbon footprint. So being able to deal with both those sides are really important. Anyhow, I mean, thank you for your observations, and thank you for the help you gave on both those days, because that was really, really important. And I think with the notes you took, Ayfer, with the report you're writing, Tracey, I mean, there's going to be so much. It's going to take us, well, we've got 2 or 3 years of activity coming out of what happened. I mean, there's so much that we can now take up and follow through. And I mean, that's quite exciting and frightening too, in terms of the work we have to do. But it's been really worthwhile. So, thank you both of you for taking part of this. It's been good to hear your views. And we'll finish this webinar interview now.